The trench smelled like wet earth and rotting wood. I had learned to stop noticing it. You learn to stop noticing many things in a war: the cold, the hunger, the sound a body makes when it falls beside you. You stop noticing because noticing costs you something you can no longer afford. But I never stopped noticing his absence. My name is Heinrich Brandt. I was 43 years old when they put a rifle in my hands and told me to march east. I had a wife named Marta, a small farm outside Hanover, and a son I hadn't seen in 4 years. His name was Emil. He was 17 when the war began. Too young, I thought. Too young for any of this. I remember standing at our kitchen table the morning he told us he had volunteered. Marta covered her mouth with both hands. I said nothing. What do you say to a boy who has your own eyes and your own stubbornness, and who has already made up his mind? I watched him walk down the road until the dust swallowed him. That was 1914. By the winter of 1917, I had stopped believing in clean things. Clean water. Clean hands. Clean endings. The Western Front had a way of stripping a man down to something raw and animal. You moved when they told you to move, you fired when they told you to fire, and at night you pressed your back against the mud wall of a trench and tried to remember what your kitchen smelled like. I thought about Emil every night. I had received 3 letters from him in 4 years. The first from training camp, excited, full of bad jokes. The second from somewhere in France, shorter, quieter. The third arrived in the spring of 1916, just 6 lines. He said he was well. He said not to worry. He said he missed my hands, which he said always smelled like pine resin and soil. After that, nothing. I wrote to Marta every week. She wrote back when she could. She never mentioned Emil's name in the later letters, and I understood why. You don't speak the name of a thing you're afraid to lose. I understood it. I hated it. I did the same. In October of 1917, our regiment was moved. I didn't know where we were going. Soldiers rarely do. You follow orders and you follow the man in front of you, and you try not to think about what waits at the other end of the march. We arrived at a shattered village on the edge of a forest. The houses were roofless. The church had no walls. The fountain in the square still ran, though, which felt obscene, something so ordinary surviving in the middle of all that ruin. And in the field beside the road, there was another regiment already dug in, younger men, most of them, their coats too big for their bodies, their faces not yet finished becoming men's faces. I was filling my canteen at a water cart when I heard someone call my name. Not Brandt. Not Soldat. Vater. Father. I turned slowly. I think some part of me was afraid to turn too fast, afraid that if I moved too quickly the voice would dissolve back into the noise of the camp, and I would be alone again. He was standing 10 meters away. He was thin. His face was sharp where it used to be round. He had a beard I had never seen before, patchy and uneven, and his uniform hung off his shoulders like it belonged to a larger man. His eyes, though his eyes were still the same, dark brown, slightly too wide, the eyes of a boy who used to bring me broken birds he found in the field and ask me to fix them. Emil. I don't remember crossing the distance between us. I only remember that suddenly he was in my arms, and I was holding him the way I held him the night he was born, completely, desperately, like something I was terrified to drop. He said nothing. I said nothing. We stood in a ruined field in the middle of a war, and for 30 seconds, the war did not exist. We had 2 days. 2 days in the same camp, eating from the same pot, sleeping in trenches close enough that I could hear him breathe. We talked the way men talk when they know time is short, carefully, about real things. He told me about his regiment, about a boy from Munich who had taught him to play cards, about a horse he had adopted for 3 weeks before it was killed in an artillery strike. He cried when he told me about the horse. Not about the other things, just the horse. I told him about his mother, about the farm, about how the old oak near the barn had finally split in a storm last spring, and how Marta had refused to cut it for firewood because he used to climb it as a child. He laughed at that. A real laugh, the kind that reached his eyes. That evening he sat beside me in the trench and tried to light a cigarette with shaking hands. The match kept dying in the damp air. I watched him try 3 times before I reached over and took the matchbox from him, cupped my hands around the flame, and lit it myself. He took a long drag and looked at me sideways. "Still doing that?" he said. "Doing what?" "Fixing things." He exhaled slowly. "Even when they don't need fixing?" I looked at his hands, then really looked at them. They were not the hands I remembered. The knuckles were scarred. The nails were broken and dark with old mud. They were a man's hands now, worn and hardened, and I did not know a single story behind a single scar. 4 years. I had missed 4 years of him. "Maybe some things do need fixing," I said. He didn't answer that. He just leaned his shoulder against mine the way he used to do as a small boy, sitting beside me on the porch steps, watching summer storms roll in across the fields. He was too big for it now. We were both too big for it. We sat like that until the cigarette burned down to nothing. That night I lay awake listening to him sleep, and I thought, this is enough. If I die tomorrow, this is enough. I found him. I held him, I heard him laugh. I told myself that. I almost believed it. On the morning of the 3rd day, the orders came. His regiment was moving north. Mine was staying. The officers gave us 1 hour. We stood at the edge of the camp in the gray morning light. He had his pack on his back and his rifle across his shoulder, and he looked like a soldier. He had learned to look like a soldier, but I could still see the boy underneath. I could still see the boy who brought me broken birds. I straightened his collar. I don't know why. It didn't need straightening. I just needed something to do with my hands. "Write to your mother," I said. "I will. Every week. Even a short letter." "I know, Vater." I looked at him for a long moment. There are things a man wants to say to his son that he has never learned the words for, things that live somewhere below language, in the part of you that is not rational and not brave, the part that simply loves without reason or limit. I pulled him close one more time. "Come home," I whispered into his shoulder. "That's the only order that matters. Come home." He held me tight. Tighter than I expected. His hand gripped the back of my coat like a child gripping a fence post in a storm, like something in him knew, even then, even if the rest of him refused to. Then he stepped back, adjusted his pack, and walked north into the gray. I watched him until I couldn't see him anymore. I kept watching after that. 2.6 weeks passed. I counted them. I don't know why. There was nothing I was counting toward, no date circled, no promise made. I simply found myself marking the days the way you mark the days when you are waiting for something you cannot name but cannot stop expecting. Then one morning the field post called my name. I knew before I opened it. I think a father always knows. The letter was written by a boy from Emil's regiment. His name was Peter, and his handwriting was careful and small, the handwriting of someone who understood the weight of what he was writing and wanted to carry it properly. He said Emil had been wounded in a forward advance. He said it had been fast. He said Emil had spoken at the end, briefly, and that the last thing he said was his mother's name, and then, after a pause, mine. He said Emil died as the sun came up. He said he thought I would want to know that he had not been alone. I folded the letter and put it in my breast pocket. I sat down in the mud. Around me the camp moved and breathed and made its noise, and I sat inside all of it like a man sitting at the bottom of a river, watching the current pass overhead. I thought about a boy with a matchbox and shaking hands. I still have that letter. I have read it so many times the paper has gone soft at the folds. People ask me sometimes what the war took from me. I tell them the easy things, the years, the health, the friends. I don't tell them about the morning in October when I held my son in a broken field and believed, for 30 seconds, that the world was still good. I don't tell them because there are no words for it. Only this: he brought me broken birds, and every time, I fixed them. The one time it mattered, I could not. And fathers are not supposed to fail their sons. That is the thing war breaks most, not the body, not even the mind. It breaks the promise every father makes the moment he first holds his child. I will keep you safe. Whatever comes, I will keep you safe. War takes that promise and reduces it to mud. For all the fathers who surged, for all the sons who were found too late,